So, how's the progress on this music room? It is non-existent. It pretty much looks exactly like it was on our last video. But we finally got our Zzounds, stuff paid off. Our multi-effects processors, our last two guitars, they're paid off. I talk about how great it is to do the pay-as-you-go on Zzounds. Or pay as you play, or whatever you call it, because you can get things 4 or 6 months or ahead of time, but if that's going to take you that long to pay off your guitar and stuff like that, or whatever equipment, drum set, you can have it to play with, interest free until it is paid off. But I've been thinking, what should my next toy be? What should my next instrument stuff be? Should I go in debt again for, music? I definitely have some microphones and stuff on my wish list. Some of them are in that $1,000+ range. But one thing I do not have is a ribbon mic. And I've been looking at ribbon mics, looking at comparisons between condenser mics and including microphones like I already have. I do have a tube condenser. I do have several SM57s, and there definitely are a few I'm not going to say cheap, but somewhat budget friendly ribbon mics you can get. And if you do a pay as you play, they can be affordable, $50 or so a month. Supposedly ribbon mics, they take the sound, and make it sound exactly as you hear it in the room. That sounds kind of neat to me. And doing YouTube searches, looking at comparisons between microphones, I kind of realized that after looking at some tutorials about EQing your acoustic and how to make your acoustic mic'd acoustic sound great, especially with stereo miking, where they take, they EQ each microphone, hard pan left, hard pan right for 2 microphone setup, and then EQ each side so that they sound more professional. Add reverb, compression, and then ultimately add like an atmospheric reverb, where you take the left channel, left microphone, and have the reverb go into the right channel, and then take the right microphone channel and make the reverb go to the left channel. And he had a example on some subpar acoustic that he recorded, sounded pretty much professional. So that definitely gives me a lot of insight, and it also tells me that I have a lot of work to try to learn mastering and EQing and stuff, and compression. So with microphones, kind of take less priority, I have a Fostex VF160 like pictured here with a CD burner on it. I think there was some limited amount of zip drives and stuff you could use on the SCSI port, and I was hoping that one day there would be some mods to maybe change the hard drive into like a micro SD, maybe have an external slot there or something, maybe even a SCSI to, who knows, USB or something thing to transfer. It's a 16-track recorder, but as is, they only do 8 tracks, and there is an ADAT interface to to transfer multi-track, I guess, into like a digital sound card or something like that. So that Fostex multi-track recorder that I have, you can only do 8 tracks at once without adding like an ADAT interface. So Behringer has a cheap one for about less than 200 bucks that has, you know, 8 mic preamps with an ADAT output. And you can buy, you know, better brands for like 600-700 bucks to do the same thing. So this will turn your Fostex FX160 into a 16-track recorder, but it's kind of a standalone system with no like real modern day way to transfer those recordings from that recorder to a PC. Of course, it has a CD burner, and there may be ways of getting zip drives, zip disks to transfer if you get the right ones, the SCSI ones, to a computer. But again, that's kind of a pain in the butt. So then you need an ADAT in-out sound card or some kind of interface for your PC. I haven't really found much or any like modern PCIe sound cards, you know, or at least for a decent price. So you're looking at, you know, a $400, you know, if you buy it new, or maybe around $280 to $300 for a used or reconditioned interface like the Scarlett 16i16, which is supposed to do that. These Fostex systems are supposed to have really, really good mic preamps on them, but we could probably get something more modern that would be interfaced with a PC without any other thing. We're talking about spending $500 to $600 to get this guy to, you know, interface with a PC, and it's older. You know, how long is it going to last? What's going to give out first? You know, why even bother with it? What, you know, that's kind of bad. But these guys are going for like 100, 200 bucks on eBay all the time now, so they really don't seem to hold any value, you know, these hard drive recorders. Or we can go with something like this Zzounds Live Track L12 12-channel mixer for $649. You know, it says 12 payments of $54. You know, after tax it's probably $60, $65. You know, this guy here is a mixer. It has its own recording capabilities, so you know it can interface with a computer in multiple ways. And I think the Fostex only has like 2 XLR connections, while this one has 3, 4, 5, 6, it looks like 8 XLR connections, plus maybe some stereo connections. So the Fostex weighs a little over 14 pounds, while this Zzounds Live Track L12 weighs only 5.6 pounds, so much more portable. And again, you wouldn't have to lug around an ADAT interface and a ADAT, you know, to get your extra tracks. Of course, this isn't 16 track, it's 12 tracks. Or we could just step up to the next, the L12, the L20, sorry, channel recorder here. And this guy here has 16 XLR connections, and it looks like a stereo connection as well. And this guy only weighs 8 pounds, so still significantly less weight, lighter. Of course, it doesn't have an ID hard drive in it, doesn't have a CD burner in it, so why wouldn't it be lighter? The Fostex has a 40 gig ID hard drive. It looks like these Zzounds Live Track mixer multi-recorders, multi-tracks support up to like a terabyte memory card, so you can just pull your SDHC or whatever card out, get multiple cards. Should be a lot easier to, you know, just copy and send to your computer, you know, especially if you do editing, you know, your final edits on the computer. What I also was looking at is this Shure KSM44A microphone as kind of like a be-all end-all microphone for everything. But look at that price. What I would kind of wonder is if these Zzounds Live Tracks would also act as an interface where you can just plug a guitar or 2 channels or whatever into, you know, your recording software on your PC, and, you know, just add tracks or whatever to whatever you already have. So, I mean, a 12 channel recorder, let's just say we needed 15 tracks or something. Can we do those 12 channels, you know, on this guy, transfer it over, and then play those tracks back on editing software, and then add these tracks at the same time, you know, add some more tracks to it. If that's the case, we probably wouldn't even need a 20 track, you know, 12 track would be fine. But if we're doing some kind of fancy, you know, acoustic drum, you know, mic kit where you got 7 or 10 mics in the future, then you're going to take up a lot of your channels. These are the connections to the back of the unit, so probably doesn't look like it has any kind of ADAT interface or anything like that. It's just like USB, and I think it's iOS compliant as well. You know, iPhone, iPad, there's multi-track software and stuff for those guys too. I don't know how good the editing and stuff is. I'm kind of disappointed at the price for the rack mount adapter. $100 just for that, so you add another $100 to this mixer if you want. But just for portability's sake, I would probably just have it loose and just so I can just move it anywhere I wanted to, not install it in some kind of rack shelf. And I got a big rack shelf, you know, already that is not going to be most likely for recording. So we do have options, you know, for the next thing. And this isn't all. We could look at guitar pedals. There's some really nice distortions and stuff. But hopefully I can make do with what I have with my multi-effects pedals, with the distortion pedals I already have. You know, I really like the Kai Shred-O-Matic, you know, even on the analog or whatever, non-tube side of things. That's one of my favorite distortions. Yeah, we can either spend like $600 on, you know, the ADAT interface and, you know, the ADAT 8-channel preamp, and get the Fostex multi-track recorder up to today's standards, but not really have that portability, or just, you know, go with like a Zoom, or go with the microphones, one of them or the other. Don't really think I want to commit another year of, you know, $100+ payments for that microphone. But maybe the ribbon microphone. Stay tuned. Maybe eventually we'll soon, hopefully, make a decision. It's in the middle of the night, so I'm probably not speaking the best, and who knows, my mind might be off a little bit tonight. Anyway, it's been a long time since we did a music instrument, you know, video at all. So are we ever going to finish our music room? It's just been so busy. Life has been so busy. You know, it would seem like if I could put 2 or 3 hours just into cleaning this room out and organizing it a little bit, that it could be done for the most part. I just haven't had time, especially with the garden endeavors and kids and homeschool stuff and taking care of, you know, Natalie. All right, I guess that's it. Take care, guys. One last thing. One of the reasons why I sort of emphasized putting your recorded tracks on a computer, you know, for final mixing, editing, you know, mastering. These guys, all the multi-track recorders, the Fostex and the Zoom, only seem to have a 3-band EQ in them. And I think, you know, unless you get close to a perfect, you know, EQ right into the recorder, you know, they're in compression and everything, you're probably not going to be able to get the best mix based on seeing how some of the professionals do the EQing of the acoustic guitar miking, and I'm sure a lot of that goes with vocals and everything. So that's kind of why I question if the 12 channel Zoom Live Track digital mixer recorder could, you know, record 12 channels, put it on the computer, and then record more, you know, while the program is playing back, you know, and record those extra tracks so that all of the final mastering can be done on a PC. Alright, that's it for real this time, guys. Take care.